You are now listening to Can't Feel the Heat, the unofficial podcast about the Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival. Our mission is to explore the complexities of Coachella, covering the news, music, artists, technology, and business of the festival. Please rate us on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on all of your favorite platforms. Follow us on Instagram at Can't Feel the Heat and check out our website at www.can'tfeeltheheat.com. Can't Feel the Heat is hosted by Tom Nash and Vanessa Franco.
Welcome back to Can't Feel the Heat. I am your host, Tom Nash. Our co-host is Vanessa Franco. What's up, Vanessa?
Hello. We did it. We made it to Coachella. We did it.
Yes, we did it. No one is sick. We're here. I lost my voice a little bit, but you're sounding good, Vanessa. Congratulations.
Thank you. I think I've got a touch of the Coachella lung, but I wore the mask. The mask helped.
Yes. Our guest today is Tim Cromwell. Tim is the Concert Concierge. He went to his 28th and 29th Coachellas and is back to give his observations. Welcome back to the podcast, Tim.
Oh, so glad to be back, Tom. Great to hear both you guys again. It was great actually getting to see you in person, too. What a great weekend.
Yeah, we all met up. We'll definitely talk about that. Before we do, we're not going to try to give an entire update of everything that happened at Coachella, obviously. That's why we have this podcast. That's why we make a lot of regular episodes. We'll give a quick little news update on a few of the most newsworthy things and quickly touch on some other festivals. And then we're all going to give our top 5 shows that we saw. So, Vanessa, what is the news update?
Well, for everyone who was stuck in the shuttle bus line on Sunday night and not wondering what the heck happened, a whole bunch of the shuttle bus drivers got food poisoning. The county, Riverside County is actually investigating. I guess their catered food somewhere off-site, a bunch of people got really sick. So that's not good, and that explains why you were waiting in line for the shuttle for a very long time. Also, Coachella's done, but there's still a party going on at the Empire Polo Club. Stagecoaches this weekend. Actually, Yola and Orville Peck, who both played Coachella, are going to be on the Stagecoach lineup. You can watch all of it live. They were streaming it for the first time on YouTube, just like they did for Coachella. So you can actually watch Stagecoach from home, which is, I would if I could, I would. So, and Brandi Carlisle is playing, so excited to see her. But then Golden Voice has a whole bunch of other festivals. There's so many festivals on the horizon. The next one, mid-May, Cruel World out at next to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. It's got Devo. It's got Morrissey. It's got basically the early years of Coachella. If you listened to K-Rock in the 80s and you went to the early Coachellas, this is the lineup for you. So that's happening 2 days. The Saturday and Sunday, and I want to say that's the 14th and the 15th is when Cruel World's happening.
Coming up.
And then Just Like Heaven is the week after that. So at the same site.
Yeah, and I'll be at Just Like Heaven. Can't wait to go. That's my early days of Coachella, the 2010s. Bands like Chromeo, Cut Copy, Franz Ferdinand. That's going to be a good one. Also at the Rose Bowl. The Hives are there too. Yes, it's amazing. That's going to be a good time.
Interpol, it's really interesting because I feel the week before you have that those legendary iconic Coachella icons who came through, and then everybody who kind of came up with Coachella, because it's been 20 years since Interpol released their first record. That made me, I was whoa, holy midlife crisis, Batman. But so it's kind of if you were into Coachella, one of those festivals might be for you.
All right, so lots to look forward to still. But let's take a look back down memory lane, talking about the top things that we saw at Coachella. We're going to do our top 5 countdown, rotating through all 3 of us, starting with Tim. So Tim, coming in at number 5, what did you see?
So I know this is kind of a cop-out because I just couldn't pick for this 5 spots, so I can't believe I'm that guy, but I'm going to do it. And there's kind of a tie here for me between 4 different bands/artists. And what's amazing about it is they're all from different places around the world too, which I think was a really great theme about this Coachella. So coming in at number 5, it's a tie between Måneskin, which I thought it was Måneskin, but actually I heard the singer pronounce it Måneskin from Italy, They were fantastic. Great rock band. Definitely kind of reminded me of kind of late 80s kind of rock style. Great energy. Really, they're real up and coming. I just saw they announced an LA date in November, and I'm sold. I will be there. They were great.
That was wild, man. They covered Britney Spears and Iggy and the Stooges. Like, when you can cover both of those artists well and make it a rock party, I'm in.
Was it Toxic or Womanizer? I can't remember, Vanessa.
It was Womanizer.
Oh, okay.
It was Womanizer.
That's
and it
good
was
stuff.
awesome.
Yeah, and then they did I Want to Be Your Dog by Iggy, which was so great. But man, the front man, I don't know his name yet. I'll have to look it up. But that guy, he's got that thing, you know. There's not a lot of front men that look like they're from that kind of era gone by, but he's got it. It was great. And then also Lion Patrice, which I know that we were there together for that one. That was a fantastic afternoon set. What a great show. Just a dance party the whole way through.
Yes, it really churned up at some moments too. I did not anticipate that energy, but it got into a little bit more of like a jam, funk, dance, like high energy thing. I thought it was going to be a little bit more understated, so I was really pleasantly surprised when they turned up the volume a little bit and let loose. It was amazing. Shout out to a friend of the podcast, Michael Milano, who was all over the videos, and I saw him posting about it. He said he was getting recognized all throughout the festival, like, hey, there's the Lion Patrice guy. So something on Facebook or on Instagram was like, no, that was not Jack Black up front. That was Michael Milano. So it was really funny seeing him up there, man. Guy rocks.
Yeah. What I loved about that one, too, is that was an example of how supportive Coachella crowds are. Like, that was just such a great, energetic crowd, you know? And sometimes in those tents, like in the Gobi there, if the crowd's into it, you could just see even on stage that they're surprised by it, you know? It was a great set. And then also Jamie XX. I don't know if you guys caught Jamie XX on Sunday night, second to last before the combo headliner. But what he did that it actually messed with my head a little bit was he did this kind of camera trick that it kind of reminded me of Aphex Twin a few years ago, where he had the cameras on the crowd. And what he did is he had professional dancers. I kind of figured it out after being there 2 weeks. Professional dancers kind of mixed throughout the crowd. And as they were doing crowd shots, they started focusing on these certain people. And the people in the crowd acted like they were surprised. And the next thing you know, they all kind of gravitated to this area. And they had 3 cameras on this group that was just dancing, just going off dancing. And they were editing the camera work so fast that it was just this beautiful, cool visual going on. The first time I saw it, I was like, is this pre-recorded? Is this happening in the crowd? Like, what is going on? And it was just a great high energy DJ set. Like, to me, a lot of times there's people that kind of shy away from electronic music. They're kind of purists. But that was a perfect example of one where I don't see how anybody couldn't have gone to that set and just had a great time dancing. I mean, he was on fire. He was great.
I love that, man. Was there any surprise guests? Did he play it straight?
Not for that one.
Okay.
Yeah, but he was spinning the vinyl too, which I love. That's so rare these days. You know, it was awesome.
I missed it, but would have loved to have seen it. It sounds amazing.
Yeah. And then the last one at number 5, I know I'm still on number 5. It's wrong, but Alton Goon, which we had talked about. I mean, they brought it. What a great way to start Sunday. 3 p.m. in the Sonora and the air conditioning right up front. You know, with you, Tom, as well, getting down with my kids as well. It was just a wonderful set. So good.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple of things that there was some really fun people representing the Turkish flag, and then another silly guy who had some kind of Middle Eastern hat on, who was putting the hat on us as we were all dancing. It was just so chill that people say Coachella is so hot and the bands are all overhyped. Well, here we are in an air-conditioned tent right up front. Absolutely no hype whatever. We were able to get there 5 minutes before and get right up front, not feel pushed at all, and hear an amazing band. And I'll talk a little bit more about them because I've got them on my list. So,
and then I'll continue. I'm sorry. I know I took so much on number 5 there.
Let me do my number.
We're each going to do our number 5s, and then
perfect.
you can.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
that's how it works.
Excellent.
So on Friday, I'm there working, I'm editing, I have to do things, and we were writing. So I was a little bit delayed. I was making my way over to Rae Jepsen. I was on a mission because I heard about how great she was weekend 1. When I heard Spiritualized coming from the Sonora tent and they sounded so amazing, I just totally detoured and I went to see Spiritualized. And like I have friends who are big Spiritualized fans, like they love like Ladies and Gentlemen, We Are Floating in Space. Like they were never really like my thing. They played the first Coachella, but they just sounded so good. So I wandered into the Sonora tent and they were amazing. They sounded so, so great that I did not regret my decision. I mean, I am sad that I didn't see Carly Rae Jepsen, but I was like, I will see her next time. Like, who knows how long Spiritualized is going to keep touring and being out there. I loved that set. It was, even though it was weird, I feel like it would have played like as a really good Sunset set, even though I was inside the air-conditioned Sonora tent. And I loved it. I thought they sounded wonderful.
Totally agree, Vanessa. They killed it. They were one of those bands that has been on, that I've just kind of missed here and there, whether it was conflicts, but to finally see them. And I think the Sonora, that's a perfect example of what's great about the Sonora because, for my generation and for your generation, they may not be able to fill the outdoor stage or the main stage, but to be able to be, in an air-conditioned area, to be in almost like a small indoor venue like that with the sound so loud, so great. It was a perfect spot for them. I loved it. What a great set,
Actually, all three of us were there. I saw the end of it too.
Well, one of the things I think that they really upgraded the Sonora this year as far as like atmosphere goes, like it had almost like a mid-century modern vibe to it with some of the decor. There were couches. And then I love the back bar. If you turn around and look at the back bar, they had records, and like it makes sense. Like Renee, who does the Viva Pomona, he's the one who curates that stage, and he does a lot of stuff like with the Glass House. And I just thought that it was so cool to have these stacks of records, like records on a shelf behind the bar. I just thought that was the coolest. Like just that little touch made it just that much cooler.
The Sonora's totally evolved. I remember the first time going in, it was all like graffiti and it just has a totally different mid-century modern look. I love how you nailed that, Vanessa. And we just have to talk about Spiritualized a little bit more because they actually played the first Coachella. That's a big deal. The band's sound has been described as space rock, neo-psychedelia, art rock, experimental rock, garage rock, influenced by Phil Spector and Brian Wilson. And I saw this after seeing back-to-back of two of my other top fives. So I'm like, having the time of my life, seeing the greatest stuff, and then coming to see this that didn't make my top five, but it was just so spiritualized, I guess is the only thing I can say for lack of a better word. I know that the lead singer has a lot of battles with his health, and you can just hear that in the music, can't you? Don't you think?
Yeah.
This person just jamming and just doing his thing. So I'll talk about my number 5 now. So this is a perfect Coachella moment because, Tim, I was listening to when we had you in the podcast in January and you were talking about those surprises, those things that you didn't think you were going to see, but then all of a sudden it was perfect.
Yep.
So Mr. Orville Peck is something that Vanessa has been talking about for years, like since I first had you on this podcast. And I love how you mentioned him when you're talking about Stagecoach because you didn't know I was going to bring him up. But, I keep a list on Spotify of like the top 50 artists that you've listened to. It's just like a thing if you type in Spotify stats. And definitely like Orville Peck was not on my top 50 like at all. But I knew a few of the songs, right? And I had just seen my number 2 show of the weekend, followed by an amazing set at the Do Lab, which is LP Giobbi, who's again friends with friend of the pod, Michael Milano. And that was a quick shout out to that. That was amazing. I'd never seen like a DJ like playing the piano the way she did. She's truly an amazing instrumentalist. So that was like a really interesting Do Lab experience. And it's like, okay, we're just chilling. We'll just go see, I guess Orville Peck over there, some country music. Why not? I've actually never been to a country music concert outside of Nashville. I visited Nashville before and done the whole Nashville thing, but never never paid for a ticket other than just like hanging out in Nashville watching country music. So it's like, okay, this is a fun thing to do. So we're strolling over there. All of a sudden, Tim comes up out of nowhere. I didn't even see you like approaching us. And somehow you just lead us through to get a great spot and watch this country musician just play. It wasn't like country music, like modern country music, right, Tim? Like you call this outlaw country, a little bit more like rock. You can see how like there's that connection between country and rock. And the drumming was excellent. He played Elvis. Piano. The guitar playing blew my mind. The guitar playing actually reminded me of Alton Goon. This was a great set. I really loved seeing really fun country show at Coachella. Thank you for that, Tim. So it was the perfect moment where I knew about this guy from Vanessa, but then Tim literally showing up out of nowhere, plucking us as we're walking over there, just like, hey, we're going to get a great spot. So thank you both for that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just, I love how timing happens like that, you know? Like, I'm just walking towards the tent because my son and my daughter were on the rail for Orville Peck. My daughter really wanted to see Orville Peck. And so I was just going to kind of go somewhere in the middle. And sure enough, I see you and your wife right in front of me. And I'm like, let's go, follow me. And it's become almost like a sport for me. I love making my way through the crowd because if you just are polite and make your way through, there's always pockets of openings. You just got to find them. And we found a great spot, you know, and we walked right in there and he blew me away. That's another one where the guys just got the charisma and they were super fun. Same thing with country. I'm not really a country guy, but if that's country, then maybe I do like a little bit of country. I mean, who knew, you know?
It's cool he's going to be on the live stream this weekend.
I hope he's going to be on. It's very interesting. Stagecoach has started to do, actually inspired by Coachella, late night sets after the headliner. And the first time they did was Diplo, longtime Coachella goer and performer. And they did that in 2019. It was so successful. They're doing it each night of the festival this coming weekend. And Orville Peck is one of the Saturday night ones. So I'm planning to see him again Saturday night. I watched him first weekend. He was great. Like, I love him because, I mean, when you think about it, if you listen to, like, old Elvis records, he kind of has that quality. And, like, when you think about how Elvis came up with that, like, bridging that country sound, that's where it is. And it's like, and if you like Orville Peck, definitely check out, like, alt country, like, things like the old 97s. Like, there's really great country music out there that is not necessarily what you're going to see on the main stage at Stagecoach, which has its own time and place, but is not really have a lot of crossover with the Coachella set, shall we say.
Oh, so good. So good. All right, Tim, how was your number 4?
All right, back to number 4, and it's only one this time, all the way through, I promise. But King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, they just crushed it both weekends. I'm going to be both weekends guy here for a second and just say that they're an example of a band that has such a catalog that they can just completely mix their set list from one to the next. The first weekend, they started with a 20-minute version of their biggest hit, Rattlesnake. Longest version I've ever heard. They just kept going. They were just jamming it out. And then the second weekend, they started with one of their albums that's a concept album called Murder of the Universe. And they played like the first 5 songs off it right in a row, which was like an 18-minute cut. And then ended with another like 15-minute song off their new album called The Dripping Tap. And they just shredded. Probably the biggest pit of the weekend, too. And it was the final set of the night, too, because I ducked out of Harry Styles to get over there. Not that Harry Styles wasn't good, but I just love King Gizzard. And they just brought it, man. Wow. I mean, they are just an example of... they're like this hybrid of like heavy rock, but they're a jam band too, which is so rare. You know, usually jam bands are much more kind of groovy and jazzy. They just jam it hard. Like, so cool. Such a great set.
I was there.
Yeah, I'm sad I missed them. I was going to go, but I ended up at Harry for both weekends because I'm like, I'm going to see King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I don't know that I'm going to see Harry again. Like, I felt like it was my opportunity to seize the moment with Harry, but man, after hearing from everyone, I'm like, I wish I was able to clone myself to see that King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard set. Both of them, because they both sounded so different. Niaz, another friend of the pod, he was like so excited because he was like, weekend 2 was much more metal than weekend 1.
Yeah.
And he was into it.
And the one thing I will say too, because I'm kind of a total fan of them, I went and saw them at the Fox on Tuesday before at Pomona. And the sound was just so much better at Coachella. And that's something I think that we really need to like give props to Golden Voice and to Coachella for, is how great the sound is on every single stage. Like, I mean, I know there's hiccups here and there, but man, they just sounded so much more clear, you know? And it just, they're just so good at the production side, and it really adds to these bands, you know? It makes a big difference.
That is very true. That is very true. Like, Coachella, I think of any festival I've ever been to or covered, has the highest production values for the sound and also for the video.
Oh, yeah.
The video screens are always just, like, fantastic. So my number 4, I spent a lot more time after, like, I don't even know if I made it to the Sonora Tent weekend one. I feel like I spent a lot of time there weekend 2. I went and saw Pup on Friday night.
Nice.
I love me some pop punk from Canada, and that's what I got. And it was really fun. Like, they're a band that I'd like listened to for a while, but I've just never had a chance to see them live. And it was like fun energy. Like Friday, I just had like one of my best Coachella music days ever. Friday weekend too. Like it was like up there.
Me too.
Like the weather was great. It was just so good. And I was just like, I was just feeling it. And that pop set, like, I mean, it wasn't super flashy. Like honestly, like when you think of like a lot of the other punk bands that I saw the weekend, like, you know, Viagra Boys and all, like Pup didn't have like a ton of stage presence, but they just sounded so darn good. To Tim's point about the like production and like how good the sound is at Coachella. So that was great. I didn't get in the pit, but I had a really fun time.
The Sonora is an amazing rock and roll venue. It's just a quick side note. We saw a band Skeggs there. That was just like a chill thing, like in between after seeing another band that we really liked. And it was just like, blew our mind with just like, wow, we're just chilling here seeing like amazing rock music that sounds so good. The production there is amazing. So I didn't see Pup. That sounds like a lot of fun, but just shout out to the Sonora. I think we were all extremely impressed by the Sonora.
For sure.
Yeah.
So my number 4 is Rae Jepsen. So she played all the hits. There's not too much to say other than this is something that when the lineup first dropped, I was like, oh, cool. Like, I'm glad she's back. That's going to be a lot of fun. But then never thought about Rae Jepsen this whole time. Like, since the lineup came out, it definitely wasn't something I was like listening up on or like telling people I was excited about. But we made our way over there and we were just relaxing, having a refreshment. And then she started playing the hits and it's just like, wait a second, this is super fun. Like, she's a pop star who cares so much about her craft, the way she sings and entertains the crowd and gives every ounce of energy that she has into her show. It was really, really good. And Friday, it wasn't too hot. It was in a tent. It was like the antithesis of like, oh, Coachella is so hot and dusty and overcrowded. This is like amazing pop music that everyone can relate to. That was just like so accessible and just great time. So much fun.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, I was just going to ask you what your number 3 was, but if you had a question about Carly.
No, but for number 3, and I mean, man, like any other Coachella, this might have been a number 1. But that just shows how much I loved my number 1 and number 2, but I won't get ahead of myself. But Stromae on Saturday night was just absolutely mind-blowing. Like, that guy is a star. Like, his presence up there, his dance moves, his voice. He sings in French. I don't speak French. I don't know what he's singing about. I've started to look into it now that I'm kind of obsessed after seeing him. But man, just such a performer, so unique. He's got a 4-piece band behind him, and each guy's a multi-instrumentalist, playing mandolins, playing guitars, playing keys, percussion, horns, all these different things. And he's working the crowd as good as anybody. And he did this thing with robotics that they weren't able to do it completely in week 1 because of the wind, but in week 2 we got the full show, and they had these screens, this 8 screens behind him that were attached to these robotic arms, and they would move around and shift throughout each song, and it just added so much. And then he had this really cool animation behind him of him, like all these different animated footage, and he used even a chair that was being moved around robotically around the stage. He was using that as a prop and like standing on it and sitting on it and laying on it and dancing on it. That guy is absolutely infectious. Like he's huge in Europe, but I got to give, props to Coachella for giving him such a prime slot, the final spot on Saturday night at the Outdoor, which was such a great trio with Disclosure, Danny Elfman, Stromae, so eclectic. And I'm just totally hooked. Like, if you want to know what I've been listening to since I've gotten back from Coachella, it's Stromae. Like, he was amazing. And he's playing in October in the Shrine, and I cannot recommend it enough. He's playing at the Shrine in LA. He was fantastic.
Amazing.
No, did he end this weekend too? Because I caught him weekend 1. Amazing. Did he end on stage with like a little barbershop quintet action, like this little acapella, like he did weekend 1?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. And he also, when he ended, like I said, he mentioned, he was like, I'm so glad that we were able to give you the full show in week 2 with the visuals and stuff. And he gave a little shout out to his wife and kids as well. It's very sweet. He's just a really neat, amazing performer. Like, so unique. I don't even know how I would describe their music. Like, it's kind of like it's very like almost like romantic in a way and very like complex. But yet from what I'm reading of his lyrics, it's very like political and very like deep going on too. He's got a lot going on.
Yeah, I want to see that show, like, and how that translates to the Shrine. I think I will be there with you.
Cool. Count me in.
All right, Vanessa, what's your number 3?
My number 3? Okay, well, Tim got to be both Weekends guy. I'm going to be both Weekends girl for a minute. Harry Styles, Weekend 2. I loved him Weekend 1. Again, he was by far the best headliner. He brought out Lizzo. She's amazing. Like, they sang Gloria Gaynor's I Will Survive, and I was, like, feeling that at that point. And then they did Wendy's You Don't Know You're Beautiful. He played the same new songs that he did the first weekend. I like them even more. Like, Harry is just great. Like, I really, really think he was by far the best headliner, and he delivered again the second weekend.
Lizzo just kind of popped out of nowhere. I saw it in the live stream. It's like all of a sudden there was Lizzo singing I Will Survive. It was really fun. I like that.
Yeah, it was nice to see her kind of singing like classic songs like that to show off the voice that she has compared to what she normally does, which is a little more, kind of almost rap a little bit in her own stuff. So it was really neat to see her showing off her talents.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was really fun. I love Harry Styles. I thought he was the best headliner again, both weekends.
Awesome. We'll move right along. My number 3 was La Imperatrice, and all I can say about that is that was the first concert I ever saw with Vanessa Franco and Tim Cromwell. So nice to really hang out with you guys and see a full show. Vanessa, we met up a little bit for The Who, but we've talked a lot about La Imperatrice on the pod. So we'll just move right along to Tim for his number 2.
So my number 2 goes back to week 1, and this should give it away. They only played week 1. Arcade Fire in the Mojave, playing some of their new material. It was just one of those shows. Arcade Fire has a history with Coachella. Like they kind of were born at Coachella in 2005.
Yeah.
And so they have such a reverence there. And you could see it in the way that the lead singer Wynn was, even the way he was acting, the things he was saying. He was so grateful to be there. He even gave props out to Paul Tollett, and to Pearl Jam for playing the first show there. And while they were on their hiatus, they had their first kid. And there was a moment, and I was really close up. I made my way up really close. But there was a moment where he dedicated one of their new songs called Lookout Kid to his son. And he started playing it and got so choked up he had to stop. And it was just one of those just beautiful moments where, after he stopped the song, he was just like, man, we've had a hard couple of years here. I'm so glad to be here. And the energy in that crowd, it was to see them. I know that maybe they're not as big anymore, like when it comes to whether they could be on headlining like they used to. But I just love when Coachella finds a way to sneak in somebody that has such a following like them. In the Mojave like that was just so unique. It was an amazing set. One of the best sets I've seen him do. They came out on fire. They were great.
The only set that I think from them that I've seen at Coachella that I liked a little more was the year with the with all the LED balls.
Oh,
that 2011?
2011,
that was amazing. But yeah, it was so special, and like he was easily my favorite from weekend 1. Like I had all the feels watching it. It was just so good. It felt like, even though like live music has been back, that's when I felt like Coachella was really, really back.
So
and
true.
I'm sad they didn't do weekend 2, because I feel like the people who only went weekend 2 didn't get to have that. I don't know if anybody else reached that for me. So I totally feel you.
Yeah. My family went weekend 2 and they were bummed that they weren't there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was right there because I was like so close for Carly Rae. I can't even imagine what it would have been like to have Arcade Fire come on right after that. It would have been too much. Even just going to see Spiritualized and relaxing for a little bit. Not saying that Spiritualized is relaxing music, but compared to Arcade Fire, oh well. I'll see them again some other time. But Vanessa, what was your number 2?
Well, it's funny you say that, because who moved into that set, the Arcade Fire spot on Friday, was my number 2, and it was Idols. And after Idols melted my face off, my face is probably half still in the Mojave tent right now. They were so good. I really thought they were going to be my number 1 of the weekend. It was amazing. I'd seen them before. They're kind of post-punk, very political. And they were so much more fun than I expected. I thought it was going to be fun. I thought it was going to be there was a good pick going for that too. But they were incredible. At one point, I want to say the bassist ended up singing part of Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On, and also part of Harry Styles' Sign of the Times, like, it was just really weird and like not them at all, but they were really good. They sounded great. And from people who saw them week 1, apparently the tent was much more full for them week 2. And it just like, had, like, we're talking about that crowd, that energy. Idols had that energy. It was awesome. So I'm really, really glad I got to see them week 2. And I regret nothing. It was great.
I feel like that's like a really good like difference between week 1 and week 2. That week 1, you know, you're saying Idols, the tent wasn't that full for them. Week 2, yeah, it gets a little bit more. You get a little more of the rock fans, the people who aren't there for like the big name pop acts, but they want to see like the cool up and coming rock bands. Is that fair? Do you think, Vanessa?
Yeah, and I think that it helped that they had that better rate. Their time slot got
the time slot.
I think that helped too. Yeah. Right. So they were having, because I think that was my problem with them week 1. Like they were playing the same time as somebody else, and I was like, oh, I'll go see them week 2. But yeah, no. But I think, and I mean, we've talked about this before. Weekend 2, like definitely weekend 1, you see a lot more influencer types, and week 2 is definitely like a lot of hardcore music fans. And I mean, I think it really paid off this year too, because we all know like the logistical issues we talked about last week that week 1 had. So I think like week 2, if you went week 2, great job. Other than missing Arcade Fire, great job.
Yeah.
You made good life choices.
Yeah, it's like a long debate that's always happened between week 1 and week 2. But I mean, how many acts in week 2 did you hear literally say on stage, wow, this is so much better than week 1? You know, like even about the crowds, you know, like they can feel it too. And it's definitely one of those things where, because the press doesn't cover it as much, because, you know, you don't have all the influencers there, it's definitely more of the true music fans that make their way around to some of the smaller acts that they're looking for sure.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, like, you know, you bring up the press, like, we go, right? Like, we have same amount of people cover it weekend 2 as we did weekend 1. But, yeah, there's a drastic change in coverage for most places. Like, you don't see the New York Times out there weekend 2. Okay, Tom, so tell us, what was your number 2?
My number 2 is Alton Goon, and this is another thing that it was unique for me this year at Coachella. I already mentioned I've never seen country music, of course, at Coachella, but seeing Alton Goon in the Sonora was truly unique for me. I felt like it was like a jam band world music type of experience, which like I've seen some stuff like that maybe on like in the outdoor stage in the heat of the day, but never something like that where I got to be like really intimate up close in an air conditioned, beautiful tent that Sonora has become. And we just had a great time. We made friends. We got people's numbers. People after the show came up to me and said, hey, you look like you guys are having a great time. Do you want to talk? And like we exchanged information, and like it was truly a world music celebration. And I heard like these different influences of, you can see how some of this like world music translated directly to rock and roll with some of the really interesting stringed instruments that sounded like what became surf rock. And it was the best Turkish psychedelic folk show I've ever seen in my life. I truly loved it. Tim was there. We had a great time, didn't we, Tim?
It was just an amazing time. And when the group of our Turkish friends that we met came up to the front there, it just added to the vibe. And just as on a personal note, I've been trying to get my daughter to let loose a little bit and start dancing more. And that was the set that like broke her out of her shell. It was so great to see her and my son just getting down. It was so fun. So fun.
Amazing. All right, so we're moving on to the number ones. Tim, what was your number 1 of the weekend?
Number 1 of my weekend, and I would even say top 10 of all time at Coachella for me, was Danny Elfman. I know the last time we talked, I had mentioned how I thought that set had a chance to be one of those, and it just lived up to it. 50 people on stage, full orchestra, a choral group on stage doing the vocals too. A beautiful combination of his new stuff that's very dark and twisted, almost like kind of Nine Inch Nails-ish, blending that in with soundtrack songs from like Spider-Man, Batman, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Simpsons. They made that into like a rock version, and then 7 Oingo Boingo songs too. And he was just right up, I got right up close for him, but he was just, I was so surprised. The guy's 68 years old and he's absolutely stacked. He looked amazing. It was one of those sets. I think that Hans Zimmer kind of set the template there for the idea of these composers coming and doing their thing, and to see him put that together like that and to blend those different genres together, it was as good as it gets. I mean, it was just it was the first time he had played a full show under his name besides those Nightmare Before Christmas shows in 27 years. It was unforgettable. I was so happy with how it came out, and you could tell that he was loving it too.
He was too. He loved it. That was the thing, because I mean, he resisted the idea for so long. And then, I mean, you could see that energy weekend one. He was so happy and having so much fun. I have a feeling he was kind of like, why didn't I start doing this like 15 years ago?
Seriously.
But he was great. He was great. I loved seeing him. I think I'm going to say it was better than Hans Zimmer, because like while Hans Zimmer was great, Hans Zimmer didn't like show us clips from The Lion King while it was happening. And I think we talked about that a little bit last week. But yeah, and Danny Elfman.
Better visuals.
It was amazing. He was just so good. He's so good. I'd like have him back every year. I would watch a Danny Elfman set every year.
It was funny. The visuals actually scared a couple of like week one of my friends kind of freaked out from the visuals, because the ones for his newer songs and for the Boingo songs. And then week two, my daughter got a little freaked out too. It was great. It was like such a blend of these peak emotions where you go from something happy like The Simpsons and all of a sudden you're into this crazy dark, like that song, ironically titled Happy from his new album. Like, watch the visuals on that one. It was like, whoa. It was great.
All right, Vanessa, what was your number one?
Okay, my number one. I was bummed I didn't see this band weekend one, and they blew my mind. Like, I've had a couple of life-changing moments at Coachella, like bands that I saw, and I was like, whoa, my life just changed. And I had that Saturday night in the Mojave tent with Turnstile.
Wow.
I was banging my head so hard. They're like a hardcore band, and I was banging my head so hard, like my shoulders and my neck were sore the next morning. I was like, whoa, that was like, I was like so into it. They were so good. They're also from Baltimore, and if you were at that set and they're like, hey, we're Turnstile from Baltimore, Maryland, the person who like went crazy screaming, yeah, that was me. So I was just so excited to see them finally, and wow, they blew my mind. I absolutely love them. I was sad, like, I feel like my pit days are behind me, but they had a really good pit going, just like King Gizzard from what I hear. So it was really wonderful. And I can't wait to go see them again and again and again and follow them in fact, I'm just going to quit my job and become the Turnstile super fan.
There you go.
I feel like they should hire you. You could provide a lot of value to that band, I think.
Yeah, right? Like, I'm from Baltimore. You're from, let's talk Baltimore. Like, the Baltimore Chamber of Commerce, like, Maryland welcomes you. We'll be like, come to Maryland where you can eat crab cakes and listen to Turnstile. That's my entire marketing campaign for my home state.
Isn't it fun watching pits sometimes too? Like, I could just so watch it for forever. It's just like, it's almost hypnotic sometimes when you're watching it.
And it was funny, like, I was up in the, like, guest pit area, and Jacoby from Papa Roach, who came out with Emo Night earlier that day and sang Last Resort with them, he was, like, right behind me, like, rocking out, too. Yeah, so it was fun. Like, everybody in that, I just felt like, I'm like, everybody who's at this Turnstile set, I'm like, you're my people. Like, we could all have a really great barbecue right now and listen to Turnstile.
I know we're not going to try to recap everything that happened at Coachella, but Jacoby Shaddix, the lead singer of Papa Roach, coming out at Emo Night is noteworthy. Like, that was awesome. I really enjoyed that. Anyways, so, I guess we'll wrap it up with my number one, and it's Purple Disco Machine. I'm not going to say too much other than this is a DJ from Germany who I first heard about from this podcast, having a guest named Justin Cohen on about a year ago. And Justin mentioned this DJ, and I really slowly but surely got into his music, and I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about the combination of his live show where he played these classic disco songs, something that's stood the test of time. I really think so. And everyone had turned their backs on some of these like classic disco hits. But then he has these original songs that are just truly beautiful works of art. And he mixed in Fatboy Slim, Praise You. And that's really all I can say about it. It's very meaningful to me personally. And the Sonora was hot. It created like a oven-like experience. And maybe that helped bring out some enjoyment for the show. Because it's just like, we're here, we're doing it. I love this. I love Purple Disco Machine. I love this DJ. I need to see him the rest of my life. I was just thinking about someday I'll see this with my kids. It just hit me like, oh yeah, we're all gonna see Purple Disco Machine someday. I hope he's around, alive, and kicking for a long time because it was truly meaningful for me. I think it's the only EDM artist that we have on our list other than Jamie XX, who I also love. And Sonora it's not Sonora, Yuma. Did I say Sonora earlier?
Yeah.
I did?
Yeah.
Anyways, it was in the Yuma, not the Sonora. And the visuals in there were absolutely beautiful with the lasers. Oh, wow. Just really a great experience.
Was Disco Shark there? I never actually made it to Yuma this year, either weekend. The line was like long when I was trying to go, and I'm like, nope, going elsewhere.
Yeah, it was tough to get in there. What's interesting is, the Yuma, you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, it's air conditioned, it's in a tent. That was the hottest part of the weekend for me was Purple Disco Machine. It was like being in like a European nightclub, like sweating it out. And once you get that sweat going, it creates this kind of feel in the room, and it really did for that set. It was great.
So Tim, were there any others like surprises or overall thoughts of the festival that you wanted to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. I kind of hit on a little earlier, but I love the international feel and how it continues to grow. And a perfect example of that for me would be some of the Latino acts I saw over the 2 weekends. Like, for example, Grupo Firme and Banda MS, Carol G. Just so fun. I mentioned earlier about how I love, watching people mosh. I also love watching people from other parts of the world dance. There's certain styles to it. And it was just so neat to see such a large contingent of people knowing all the lyrics to those songs and just getting down to them. And it's very encouraging to me because, people will say to me, oh, I don't really like the headliners. They're too poppy, blah, blah, blah. They're not really looking deeper into what's going on. And what Coachella continues to do is they are just on the cutting edge when it comes to covering the world, and getting people from all these different countries that if you do a little research and take a few chances, you can just see so many different things in one day. And then the other thing I want to say about overall thoughts, obviously there's hiccups here and there, like with parking or the shuttles and stuff like that. And it was definitely dusty this weekend. But they just always find a way to continue to upgrade the festival, like little things. Like they added a pathway that went from the craft beer area. You could cut through from the Mojave to the Sahara in like 3 minutes when it would usually take you 15 minutes to wrap around. Like that was a huge game changer for a lot of people. And they just continue to up the food game too. Like I had the Hattie B's Nashville chicken sandwich was fantastic. I had this Vietnamese noodle bowl with blackened shrimp that was great. The ramen was really good. There's just so many, they add all this stuff and they just continue to try to better it. And they're so good at it. So overall, this was another, memorable one. I would say, I got to give it time because I'm always the guy afterwards like, man, that was one of the greatest. But this was up there. Like when you look at the overall, like when the fact that 3 of the sets to me were like all-timers is very, very rare. And it was a wonderful weekend for sure.
I got to add, I'm glad you mentioned Carol G because I actually totally forgot about that. And she brought out J Balvin, who I've been quoted on this podcast as saying would be like an ideal headliner for me. So when he came out, it was just like, whoa, that was so fun. Yes, thank you for mentioning that, Tim. That definitely goes under my honorable mention. What about you, Vanessa?
I think what Tim was saying, the global thing, it was really interesting, right? Like, because I started Friday with Muta, which I think is actually how you pronounce it, the German techno marching band. I started with them.
I saw them too.
Yeah, then we went and saw the Who together, like the Mongolian folk metal, which Coachella needs to book more of that. I don't know about you, but I was into it. And then I started Saturday with Coffee from Jamaica. Oh my God. They were amazing, a great Bob Marley cover, and it was hot out there Saturday, but I was like, I am into this. I'm not moving from the spot on the main stage right now. So it was really fun. I think this is probably the Coachella where I did not have the biggest, normally I'm like, okay, I'm hitting this. And it was the first one in a while where I kind of, I had some stuff I wanted to see, but I was able to explore a little more. And that was kind of that magic of Coachella. Spiritualized, who I wouldn't have picked to see, because I've seen him before, and it was all right, but I was never really into that, but they sounded so good. So I'm glad. I will say that, I know that having the bigger space is good, and it allows for more breathing room. I really do miss when it was just a little bit smaller. Because, like, I mean, by the end of Sunday night, I was like, I feel like my feet are falling off going back to the parking lot. I was like, I can't do it anymore. But, I mean, and we're going to look forward next year. Frank Ocean's supposed to be there, theoretically. Who knows? Maybe Rage Against the Machine will come back. I'm still holding out hope against hope that will somehow magically happen. But it was good. I think they rallied from the issues they had the first weekend. And I'm curious to see how Stagecoach plays out this weekend. I'll be back out there again. You can follow me on Twitter and the newsletter, doing all the things for PE.com for Stagecoach. And I'll get to see Yola and Orville Peck again. So a little bit of Coachella into the weekend. Yeah,
Vanessa, you put out a lot of content. Everyone should follow Vanessa. You can follow our podcast at Can't Feel the Heat on Instagram and Twitter, and check out our website at can'tfeeltheheat.com. Thank you for listening.
You have just listened to Can't Feel the Heat, the Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival unofficial podcast. Please rate us on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on all of your favorite platforms. Follow us on Instagram at Can't Feel the Heat, and check out our website at www.can'tfeeltheheat.com.